Instead of looking at history in chapter 2, what I want to look at is going to be ideology this time. Ideology is not necessarily going to be what's happening in the world, but rather ideology is going to be the way that people view what is happening. All of us are going to have maybe certain biases, or maybe all of us are going to have certain preferences, or maybe all of us are going to have certain things that we really don't like. And it doesn't really matter if it's politics, or if it's religion, or if it's dating, or if it's ice cream. The fact is that all of us are going to have certain ways that we view certain circumstances. In chapter 2, we're going to be dealing with contending perspectives. And by contending perspectives, we're going to be dealing with these differences in ideology. These differences in the way that people view things as far as what they find is acceptable and what they find that's not. The first ideology that I wanted to give you is actually going to be an ideology that is known as realism. Realism, realism very simply, is going to be a conservative philosophy. If you've ever heard of the Republicans, the Republican Party, the conservative nature of the Republican Party, this is really what realism is. It's going to be very conservative in nature. Maybe you've heard of the phrase, sometimes the glass is half empty and sometimes the glass is half full. Well, the realists are going to look at world views. They're going to look at world issues with a pessimistic perspective. By pessimistic, I mean their glass is always going to be half empty. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So they're going to be looking at things with that negative, with that pessimistic perspective. They also are going to judge things in terms of groups. Their idea as far as world affairs, very simply, is this. People are going to strive to become parts of groups. They're going to need a certain amount of inclusion. They're going to need a certain amount of camaraderie. Having said this, they are also going to strive to exclude people from certain groups as well. So they're going to want to include like-minded people, or maybe like-ideaed people. But they're also going to look to exclude the people that are different. So sometimes people are going to agree on ideas. Sometimes people are going to agree on who they don't want in their given groups. Another thing that's really, really important in this regard is the idea of inevitability of conflict. Basically, what realists are going to hold is that conflict is inevitable no matter what. And basically what they say at the bottom of page 49 and then up at the top of page 50, they are basically going to say that when you're dealing with conflict, it's always there. If you go back through international history, there are going to be different religions. There are going to be different governments. There are going to be different political thoughts. Bottom line is that not everybody is going to agree. And when everybody can't agree, there's going to be conflict. The key in international relations is not going to be to eliminate conflict, because that's impossible. It's always been there and it always will be. But what your job will be to do will be to basically try and manage the conflict to keep it from getting too far out of hand. If you have a World War I, if you have a World War II, if you have a nuclear war, which we haven't yet mercifully, but if we did, these would all be examples of the failure to manage conflict. When you deal with Israel and countries in the Middle East, or when you deal with genocides that might be in Africa, or when you deal with different natural disasters that take place in the Far East, you can control these a little bit better and keep them from getting out of hand so that massive conflicts or massive problems or massive diseases don't arise. What you'll also see up here